everyone. Welcome to another episode of Come and See. I am Mariam Nagy, your host for this show, and we are coming to you from St.Moses Coptic Orthodox Church in Washington, D.C. Hello.
Hello.
Can you please introduce yourself to our audience today?
Hi, my name is Ezra.
I'm Claudine Haddad.
I'm Lucci Gailey.
We are going to talk about a subject that I've been wanting to discuss for a while now. It's one that some might even call an addiction to a lot of people. We're going to talk about social media. Claudine, I'm going to ask you the first question here.
Sure.
How do you feel that social media has changed over the years, or at least since you and I were teenagers?
I don't think I'm that old, but I came from the like the flip phone age of cell phones, and AOL.
Okay.
And we had instant messengers, but not like it is today. I think today, or this generation, everybody's too connected. There's a whole lot of social networks, and it's just become a way of communication, but it's totally different than my time, for sure.
Mm-hmm. By the way, Claudine has 3 boys. How old are they?
My oldest is 13, 11, and 7.
Do they use any social media platform?
Absolutely. It's definitely a challenge in our home, at least at my house. But yes, they have it all. Facebook. I just heard recently Twitter, and I don't know even how they got on Twitter. I refuse Snapchat. And Instagram. They're just, but mainly on Instagram, and just they even have their emails, and yeah, they're on it.
Okay. Ezra, this question is for you. How old are you?
I'm 16.
Okay. Do you use social media?
Of course.
How often?
Very often.
Okay. So would you say it's a little bit of an addiction?
I don't want to say it, but yeah, it is.
Okay. Do you feel that there are any platforms that are maybe safer than others when it comes to social media?
I don't believe so, because each platform has its own way of it being dangerous.
Okay.
Like Snapchat, what's dangerous about Snapchat is that the pictures go away after 10 seconds, and that's it. Instagram, there are people that you really don't know that could still see your pictures and such. Facebook, we know, is very dangerous and such. Yeah.
And yet we still use them. And in a way, they have become a way of life for us. Luigi, this question is for you. Even though social media is at times a dangerous platform, I feel like we as people feel safer to share what we think and how we feel on social media than we actually would do in a more safe environment when we're talking face to face. Why do you feel more safe on social media to discuss everything and maybe share, private thoughts or feelings?
Because saying it face to face is kind of scary, because you never know what they're gonna do, and but over a phone or over social media, you feel much safer, and like you feel like nothing will happen to you and you're perfectly fine, even though it's kind of the same thing.
So are we deceiving ourselves in making us feel a little bit safer than it really is?
Most definitely, yeah, because whenever we say something, we look to somebody's face to see their reaction, and without that, you could say basically whatever you want and not feel remorse, I guess you could say.
Okay.
I think definitely for introverts, it's a safe haven where they don't have to look at anyone in the eye and speak. So yeah, they can actually express themselves and say what they want to say without having to confront anyone.
So you having the mic, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What have you told your children about speaking to strangers on social media?
Honestly, I know that their school covered that too, which took the load off of me, but still. I always tell them and remind them, don't speak to strangers, don't share personal information, don't, don't, don't trust anyone. If it could be an adult pretending to be an 8-year-old. So don't trust anyone. Don't share anything. Use fake names if you have to. But it really is hard to be on top of that because they, I can't always be in the same room watching them over their shoulders, and I got things to do. So it's not realistic, but I always remind them for sure.
So for both of you, have you ever spoken to a stranger on social media? Now, you've been taught not to, and you've been told that it's a dangerous thing to do. Have you ever done it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So Claudine, how does that make you feel?
Oh no. I'm sure my kids have, but it's worrisome. I'm hoping the chances are that they've spoken to another kid out there who's just as naive as my kids. But of course, it's absolutely scary.
So what made you safe enough or feel safe enough to speak to a stranger? And have you ever said anything on social media that you've regretted later? Luigi, why don't you start?
I felt safe because I knew that this person wouldn't see me face to face, and I don't really like sharing personal information when I know he's a stranger or she's a stranger, and I usually just go with the flow and hope that nothing dangerous happens, and if he tries to ask me personal questions, I'll just try to change the topic. Or
Okay. So we do it and pray for the best. Okay. What about you?
Anytime I've done it, it's always been public. It's never been a private chat, and it's always been a joke or something funny, nothing deadly serious or anything like that.
Okay. So my other question was, have you ever said something on social media that you regretted later on? Maybe it wasn't even talking to a stranger, maybe talking to a friend, and maybe you said something that would hurt their feelings and so on. I feel like with social media, because we are not seeing that person face to face, we're more open to saying how we feel, honestly. So at times we do step over a line. Have you done so?
yes.
Okay.
I haven't. It's very hard to believe, but I haven't.
Do you feel like you are a different person when you're on Facebook or when you're on Snapchat or social media in general?
Yes.
Okay, how so?
I'm more confident over social media, but in real life I'm so shy.
Okay.
I would agree. I'm the exact same.
Okay. Claudine, do you use social media?
Not like my kids do. So I'm busy working during the day, and it's just too time consuming. If I get on Facebook, time flies. So not as much as my children.
How or what kind of restrictions do you put for your children?
So my husband is more tech savvy than I am, and he set parental controls on everything, on all the devices in the house, computers, iPads, yeah, all of that.
Okay. From your perspectives, I'm sorry, Luigi, I didn't ask you earlier, how old are you?
I'm 14.
Okay, so from your perspectives, is there something that we as parents or adults should know about your use of social media? I feel like maybe you think that we put too many restrictions on it?
Sometimes, yeah, but in the grander scheme of things, we as children would understand why.
Okay, so we are justified in doing that. Is that correct? Okay, so what advice would you give parents on what to do with social media for their kids? Now, I'm not talking about you specifically, but I want you to tell me honestly, what should I do with my children when it comes to social media?
Give your children trust, I guess you could say. And then once they mess up, let that be like a reminder for them not to mess up again, or like remember when this happened kind of thing.
So should I wait for something to happen to take action, or do you honestly think that I should take action before?
I honestly think you should wait and then show them that mistakes happen and they learn from their mistakes.
Okay. Claudine, as an adult, I don't necessarily agree, obviously, with what they're saying. I feel like we should have the restrictions there in place in advance so we can prevent anything from happening, such as talking to strangers and so on. So how do you feel?
Okay, so I definitely give my boys a lot of trust, and there was an incident where, and it was completely innocent of its nature, but you know, they were trying to Google something and they went on YouTube, and it was very, very inappropriate. So that's what gave us the first scare in putting parental controls, because we didn't want them to revisit certain sites again that, you know, if they're looking up at the time, like Dora looked crazy or something, and but just some inappropriate things. So all it took was one little innocent mistake, and it just led to more horrific things. So we didn't want that mistake to happen again, and you know, we just want to keep them as pure as possible and as long as possible. But yeah, setting parental control is so important.
Okay. Have you ever felt the need to justify yourselves and your opinions on what you're putting out there? Or do you sometimes feel that when you are putting an opinion out there, you have to be careful to not offend others and so on?
I think you have to keep that in mind, not to offend anybody, because then that just starts like a war.
Okay.
But if you're gonna put out your opinion on anything, my advice would just be like to back it up or something like that.
Okay. So I want to take it a step further. Sharing Christ as Christians. Do you feel comfortable doing it on social media? Since we feel comfortable with everything else. We say our opinions on politics, we say our opinions are about sports, fashion, everything else. Do we share Christ as openly and as confidently when it comes to social media?
I think I'm guilty of that. On social media, usually what people are talking about are the big trendy topics. Mm-hmm. You said politics, sports, anything like that. And there's not really like, I don't want to say time, but there's not really space where you just like slide it in or something like that, or like say it like, you know, big.
Do you feel like there's no place for religion when it comes to fun things such as
not really
Snapchat?
But, social media just, I guess you could say, just doesn't allow it. Is it like, it doesn't allow it because nobody's really gonna look at it.
Okay.
Just gonna skip over it, maybe something like that kind of thing.
Okay. Loji, what do you think? Do you share Christ as openly when it comes to social media?
Not really, honestly.
Okay. Do we feel that maybe there is a little bit of an embarrassment? And I think that's what I was touching on when I said, do we feel like we can offend someone? So we have obviously a lot of friends from school, from church, and from everywhere else. So not all of them, so our friends from school, not all of them are obviously of the same faith. So do we want to prevent offending them by sharing our faith? Or is it just us being embarrassed, or as you said, not having space?
Well, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Well, do you go to a private school or public school?
I go to a public school.
Okay, I was wondering. Okay, because my kids go to a public school, and I think they're a little hesitant in, they're reluctant in sharing something that's Christ-based, because they have friends from different backgrounds, and some who don't believe in anything, but so they're sensitive to that. But I try to always encourage them to, you know, post something like that's scripture, and sometimes they'll do it, but 90% of the time it's what's popular between the youth. And I thought it's because they're a public school, so I was curious if you were in a private school. That's why I thought maybe it'd be different.
Okay. Yeah. So what do we mostly, and I really want to know this with, you know, complete honesty, what do we use social media for? Why don't we take turns and say that? So, for example, of course, I use social media. I use Facebook, and I have friends that went with me to elementary school and middle school that I'm still in touch with, and social media makes that possible, and it makes it so easy. We share photos, we share memories, we share everything. What do you use social media for?
Honestly, sometimes I use social media for attention. Sometimes because I feel like no one shows me attention in like real life, and so I feel like over social media it's better.
Okay, that's great. What do you use it for, Claudine?
Just to catch up on the news of my family and relatives and my friends. Other than that, it's just, if I fall off the face of the earth, at least there is a kind of a lifeline of going what's going on with the rest of the people. So in that sense, it kind of helps out. But with my kids, I know for sure it's about popularity and how many likes they get.
Okay, Ezra?
I use social media just to catch up on things, or see what my friends are doing, or see like funny things that make me laugh or something if I'm feeling down, or anything like that. Yeah.
So here we have it. Social media can be used for so many reasons. It could be negative, and it could have a positive effect on our lives. We just need to be careful. And for all the parents out there, please be careful. See what your children are using. Try to talk to them about why they're using social media. You want to keep them safe. Just because they're using it at home or while they're sitting right next to you doesn't mean that they're safe. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next episode of Come and See.